Hi, everyone, and welcome to this AMA. My name is April Speight, and I am the lead for the spatial computing technology team here at Microsoft. This conversation will be focused on mixed reality, and joining me is one of the members on our team, and that's Gustavo. Gustavo, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Gustavo. I'm, as April said, one of the members of the spatial computing team in cloud advocacy. I'll be helping April answering questions through the chat, so feel free to ask away, and whatever we can, she can go over it, I'll try to answer to the best of my abilities.
Thank you very much, Gustavo. So, as Gustavo mentioned, he's going to be hanging out in the chat, and we also have some student ambassador moderators in the chat as well. If you have any questions, we encourage you to place them into the chat. We are going to answer them to our best ability, of course, and we'll keep an eye and see what's going on. We also have some links to share as well for some of the resources that we'll be talking about. And then for sure at the end, we're going to summarize all the links that we are sharing, so that way you have them all in one place. So I do see we have some folks that are in the chat already. So hi, Sharon from India. And then I also see we have Gino, who happens to be one of the student ambassadors and also here to help out. We have Sandro as well, another student ambassador. And the first question that I have from Sharon is there a way to develop VR through Microsoft resources? So yes, this is actually something that I've been working on a lot this summer. I have an Oculus Quest as my VR device, and I utilize the Mixed Reality Toolkit. If you're not familiar with the Mixed Reality Toolkit is an open source toolkit that has been created to help accelerate your mixed reality development. And so if you import that into your project, let's just say you're using Unity, for example, that's what I've used. If you're not familiar with Unity, it's an engine where you can create your experiences. If you import the Mixed Reality Toolkit into your project, you are provided with various prefabs being objects that are going to be configured already for you. We include scripts as well, so that way you have some interactivity without having to start from scratch. So if you import that in, you're going to get interactivity that'll be really helpful. It also includes teleportation as well. That's also, if you're using an Oculus Quest at least, that'll also be able to use hands as well for interacting, but you're also welcome to use controllers too. So definitely check out the Mixed Reality Toolkit. It is by far one of my most favorite things to use. And I would say, what we have, even though it's not necessarily in terms of documentation VR focused, it's more or less in terms of similar use. There is an additional link. I'll need to grab it before the AMA is over, and if I don't find it by then, I'll put it in the Discord. But there is a link on our resources, or an article within our docs, that takes you through the steps of setting up Unity for VR development for with an Oculus Quest, utilizing our Mixed Reality Toolkit. I know that was a mouthful, but in any case, I will grab that link for you, and then that'll help you at least set up with Oculus, if that happens to be the device that you're using. All right. So let's see what's next in here. And you're very welcome, Sharon. Okay, so. Okay, perfect. You're familiar with Unity, and so you're just getting started with VR. And again, if anyone else has any particular questions that they want to ask, definitely place them into the chat. I'll cover a couple of things that may be of interest to you all, and hopefully you'll think of some additional questions. But some of the things that we happen to get asked when people are getting started is what sort of devices that they can use. So as Sharon mentioned, you can develop for VR. I mentioned Oculus, but that's not necessarily where it stops. Although we at Microsoft are most known for utilizing HoloLens, There are other devices that you can use. If you're using mobile, for example, you have iOS and Android. So whether you have an Android phone or anything running iOS like an iPhone, for example, you can use that. With regards to head-mounted devices, and that's being any device that you actually place on your head, you have a variety of different options there. More notable ones, as I mentioned, is going to be the HoloLens 2, the Magic Leap 1. If anyone happens to have one of those devices, that's actually the device that I started with. The Quest, you can also do Oculus Quest, you can do the Quest 2 as well. And then if you happen to have a Windows mixed reality device, which is going to be a VR device we have. Oh, I see Solomon typing. Hi, Solomon, I haven't talked to you in a while, so it's nice to see you here. In terms of getting started, so recently the mixed reality team has put together a learning path on Microsoft Learn that'll help you get started with HoloLens. Now, even though HoloLens 2 is mentioned in the title, there are some very, very helpful exercises in there that aren't necessarily just dedicated to HoloLens. You can pretty much apply that across various different devices that you're targeting. So we have the link is going to be aka.ms/learn-HL2 fundamentals, and we'll get that link into the chat itself. But check out that Learn module from a getting started perspective. Solomon mentioned that the Nrail is also a great device. And so with Sharon, what is the mixed reality device name? So that from the Microsoft side of the world is going to be our HoloLens 2. If you happen to use a Windows mixed reality device, oh my goodness, the name is slipping right now, but it's with HP. We did partnership with them, and there's a device as well that you can use. And again, more questions are definitely welcomed. I will answer them. In terms of languages, so if you're getting started and you're trying to get an idea of what language you should actually start with, it's going to depend. So you do actually have some options. Personally, I use C# as I do my scripting with Unity. And if you are brand new to C#, I would say don't fear. When I started working in this space, I only had Python knowledge. And so I ramped up with C# through Learn modules that we have at Microsoft. And then in addition to that, Unity also has scripting lessons for Unity scripting that'll teach you C# as well. So there's that option. Next, we're going to have JavaScript. So if you want to try out Babylon.js, for example, you can create experiences with that as well. There's also going to be, believe it or not, HTML if you're working with A-Frame, and that'll enable you to create VR experiences too. So you do have some flexibility. The final language that I'll share is C++. So if you happen to be using, oh my goodness, it's slipping my mind right now, Unreal Engine, then you can utilize C++. And they also have another way that you can also put together experiences in there as well. But I've mentioned different engines, if you will. And with that said, there's Unity, and then there's also going to be Unreal. In addition, there's different setups that people have created on their own and customized. And you can also code, you can also go to native route and utilize Visual Studio. That's also something I've done. In addition, if you're taking more of the JavaScript route, you can utilize either the Babylon.js playground, and that's going to be within the web. There's also going to be Visual Studio Code if you decide to take the JavaScript or HTML route too. And so as it relates to that, you really have your pick. I would say if you've never tried any of those out, I would say at least start with an intro. I know there might be a lot of options that I just named, and maybe from speaking with other individuals about what they find to be pros and cons of each one will help you get an idea of where to start. For me personally, I started with Unity. And later down the road, maybe 6 months later, I tried out Unreal. I found out it wasn't necessarily best for me because I had gotten so used to Unity. But I am aware of people who love Unreal, would have rather utilize Unreal, and that's like their go-to. From what I'm understanding, Unreal is going to be more feature robust. So I would say if you're asking around for advice, just keep in mind some opinions will definitely vary, but there's not one that's better than the other. It just comes down to a matter of preference. I mentioned if you want to go to native route, you can utilize Visual Studio. And if you're wondering, well, how do I even do that? So we also have another toolkit known as Stereo Kit. And you could utilize that, and you can do your coding within Visual Studio. There is a template available to help you get started, and it's a NuGet package. I need to grab the actual link to that, so that way, if anyone's interested, you'll know where to find that. Oh, Gustavo beat me to it. So you can utilize Stereo Kit as well. So even though it's not on a Microsoft page, it is actually within our Microsoft family. We work with the actual engineer who created Stereo Kit, and there's always updates to that as well. So you're welcome to check that out. I recently created some videos that that'll go through the actual setup, as well as different things you might want to do with Stereo Kit. They are pending being uploaded to YouTube. And so once they're there, I'm sure we'll do a nice blast out to everyone in the community that those exist. And for those of you who would rather view it in a different language, we have captionings as well. So that's what took a little bit long for me. So you'll have that option too. And let's see. I have a question from Sharon. Is only Python enough, or is it required to learn C++? If yes, why? So Sharon, it's going to depend on the route you want to take. So as I'm personally creating anything mixed reality, I've never used Python. The way where Python came into the story for me was that was the only language I knew before coming into the mixed reality space. Fortunately, having an experience in a programming language made a big difference with learning another one. And so that's where I would say having Python was helpful. And so question from Salman is, one concern that Salman had for a project was if we're doing a project which is for a mixed reality headset, wouldn't the customer impact be lower since it isn't common to have a mixed reality headset? Salman, are you referring to the HoloLens or the HP device? If it's for either way, I have an answer, but I'll wait to see. Okay, so for any, so as it relates to the HoloLens, although, yes, it's not a device that most people will have, what we've found is that it's a device that is primarily used by enterprise companies. And there's also various orgs who utilize it as well. I share that to say, if you're working on a project with that particular group as your audience, then you'll likely have a bit more impact. If you're not necessarily catering towards that particular audience, then I would advise utilizing potentially a different device, just given the fact that whatever you are creating will be, a different device will be more accessible for people. And so that I would say to keep in mind, it really comes down to your audience that you're creating something for. And hopefully that answered your question. If not, let me know. Let's see what else I can cover for you all regarding this. So we have a variety of mixed reality services available that you can utilize in your projects. And I'll name a few. I'll give an example or descriptions of what they entail. And, it's pretty flexible in how you can use it. In addition, you can also integrate various Azure services outside of our mixed reality cloud services. But starting with Mixed Reality Services, as Solomon mentioned, Azure Spatial Anchors, which is ASA, and then Azure Remote Rendering. So Azure Spatial Anchors is going to be a really good option if you want to have something to persist in your experience, and it's also going to be good for wayfinding as well. So perfect example, right now I'm working on a project where it's going to be like a museum set up in a space. And so using Azure Spatial Anchors, I'll be able to start the app on mobile on my phone. And then as I'm looking around the room, I'll have different objects set at different parts in the space. And so therefore, let's say if Gustavo came by and he also had the app, Gustavo can also view that experience, but on his phone, and he'll see exactly where things are in that space. So it's a really cool feature in my personal opinion. The same if you are utilizing ASA for wayfinding. The setup's going to be a little different. I will warn you for that. But basically, what you'll be able to do is set markers in different places. And from there, you'll actually get these arrows that'll guide you to where, a sequence of directions to take. There is a video, there are actually a small bit, but there are some videos on YouTube that demonstrates either one that I just mentioned. And I would suggest to find those. If you head to YouTube and type in Azure Spatial Anchors, for example, something will come up to give you a really good idea of what that actually looks like in real life. And as it relates to Azure Remote Rendering, so that's going to enable you to render models. And the thing with Azure Remote Rendering is that you don't necessarily need to lose the quality of the model that you're going to render. So historically, when models have been rendered, some of the quality gets diminished. But with Azure Remote Rendering, we do place the model itself in the cloud, and when it is rendered, you're actually going to get better quality. So in theory, this is something that you would use with a HoloLens, for example, and if you're doing some sort of a collaborative conversation, it's good for that. The example that we provide is with an engine. I forgot if it's for a car or something else, but in any case, everyone around the room is will be able to view that, and it'll be in the same location. So if I were to turn the engine over or whatnot, let's say Gustavo's also there, he'll be able to see me do something similar to that. So that's how Azure Remote Rendering works. And so if I scroll back up to the top, because I can talk about these topics all day, let me make sure I'm not missing the messages here. So let's see. Starting with Morgan has a question. Can you use Geo with spatial anchors? I believe Solomon touched upon that a little later down the road. So it doesn't need the GPS, and the anchors are going to persist in the cloud. Let's see what else. And so essentially, if you are planning out something wide scale, that'll definitely mean you're going to need to go out and do some traveling to set up. Let's see. Let's see. Still scrolling. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Morgan, with regards to if you wanted to set up a tour of the city of historical landmarks. And one place that we've really seen use with from the Microsoft side, I've seen it used in the museum. Whereas once someone has put on, they actually use a HoloLens, but once they put on the HoloLens, as they're going through the museum, there's different stories being told. It's actually pretty cool. I saw a demo of it. So I've seen it done in that way. I've seen other examples, like the example you gave, Morgan, where as someone's walking around a city, they're able to get information about landmarks. I saw a really cool one where someone did an app where, so let's say I live in LA right now, their app, if you were to walk out or go out into the real world, as you're scanning the space with the app, it'll actually show what the area used to look like. So they had partnered with, I forgot what library or museum, to get footage of the area like many, many years ago. And they were able to incorporate that into their app. So if you're using the app and you're in a certain location, it'll actually show you, like, it'll play like a video of what was going on in that time. Hopefully that came across clear, but it's one of my favorite examples, I would say. Someone also did an app where they made a model of like a big ship appear on actual water without the ship actually being a real ship. But if you were to put your phone camera over it, you can actually see a really big model of a ship. Let's see. What else is here? There was a question with Solomon if anyone here is a 3D Blender designer, so they can use models for ARR. Also, if you're not familiar with Blender, it is a platform that you can use to create 3D models. Let's see what else we have. So a question from Sharon: can I set up kind of AR, VR to get a model of the city so that we can go there in first place in Unity? So let me know if I'm not answering this correctly, or wait. Oh wait, Solomon answered it. Sorry. And you got your response. So yes, answer is yes, you can do that. With regards to other cloud services, we have Azure Digital Twins. I saw a really outstanding Imagine Cup project last year that took advantage of Azure Digital Twins. If you're utilizing IoT devices, Azure Digital Twins is going to be a really great example. It essentially creates what's known as a twin of something in the real world, and then you can view that digitally. So good example, let's take an office building. And if you're utilizing smart thermometers, or not thermometers, thermostats throughout the building, instead of having to go look at every single one individually and make changes, using the ADT platform that we have here, you can actually pull all those into there, and you can monitor everything that's going on in one place with all the thermostats. You can also you can make changes to it. So if you know that the current temperature in a room happens to be, let's say, 80 degrees, and you want to lower that, you can view all that in the platform, and you can make those changes right there without having to get up and actually go do something. That happens to be an example that we do provide in the ADT, so the Azure Digital Twins documentation. We also have an example in Learn. It's a learning path that you're able to create more or less a wind farm. So utilizing, is it called a wind farm? You can use wind turbines for that one. Let's see. The next service is going to be Azure Object Anchors. And so not to be confused with Azure Spatial Anchors, but Azure Object Anchors, you're going to be able to more or less snap an object to a real world object. So snap like a model to a real world object. It has various uses for why you want to use it. One example that we like to share is in any sort of like I can't think of the word, warehouse setting. Oh my goodness, I'm blanking. For training purposes. If, let's say, you're new to the job, you're not sure how to use some machine, if you were to put on, in this example, like a HoloLens that actually takes you step by step, you're actually able to create an app that places the 3D model of the machine into view, and you can provide directions for, pull this lever and then press this button and then turn this thing. That's an example of Azure Object Anchors. I will share right now that there is limitation with Azure Object Anchors with regards to object or model object size. And so from the top of my head, I can't remember the exact size, but it's essentially, to sum it, very small objects you're not going to be able at the moment to utilize with Azure Object Anchors. So like right now, on the screen, I'm showing a candle, for example. Something that's small, you're not going to be able to use it for. Something like coffee table, you'll be able to use that. So object anchors right now is in preview, and you can utilize that now, at least with it being in preview. I would say just check back every so often to see when it will GA. I have been speaking with that team. There's exciting things coming down the pipeline, so just check back in the documentation. And there was something. The final thing I'll leave you all with, because I'm seeing that we're coming to the end of this conversation. I don't want to leave out the people who don't necessarily want to code, but you still want to create these experiences. So if that is you, you have the option of using Power Apps. And I have a video series on YouTube that takes you through the steps of setting up an app that utilizes the mixed reality components. These components are going to be drag and drop into your Power Apps app. And there's different configurations you can do around it, but essentially it'll provide a way for you to view objects in 3D. You'll also be able to, in 3D meaning on your screen, you can turn it around. The other option will be able to view it actually in your space. And then there's also a ruler as well, so you can measure in 3D in your space. So the app that I created, to give you an idea of how you can utilize this, I created this interior decorating app, sort of, where it's supposed to be a collaboration between the client and the designer, the interior designer. The client can browse a catalog of objects. Each object, I utilize a 3D model to represent. So when they click on the object in the app, sorry about that, they'll be able to view it in 3D. They can view all the information like a description, the cost, and then they have the option to view it in their space. So there's a button in the app. They can view it in the space. They can reposition it. It'll be at scale, so that way they know how it's going to be in the space. And then the next thing they can do is take a picture of it as well. That picture, then they can upload it to a shared folder with their interior designer, and they can get feedback on if something looks good in the space. So it's quite a specific example, but that is more so to give you an idea if anyone's interested in utilizing Power Apps, but not necessarily having to use any sort of particular code. Now, for the app that I created, there is some formulas that'll need to be created in Power Apps to get the full functionality of what I mentioned. And I'll grab the link to the videos that I mentioned and place it in Discord. Sorry, I didn't grab it in advance, but with that, you'll be able to actually get an idea of how to set it up. And I literally go step by step, so that way you're clear on how to actually recreate something like that. So, as Gino just asked, before this AMA ends, are there any further questions? I'm either happy to answer them now before we end, and if not, this chat's always here too. And I knew I threw a lot at everyone in such a short time, but I'm hoping that as you're thinking through projects and ideas and apps and experiences, you'll consider utilizing some of what we have, I would say. Final question I have here from Solomon: what are some pain points of customers which AR can solve? So what we've seen, and can we get in touch with customers? So if you're speaking in terms of customers who have connected with Microsoft, I would say it's going to vary. We've seen different use cases across, like academic, for example, and Gustavo can probably touch upon that a bit more with how AR is being utilized in the classroom. There's different examples as it relates to providing guides for, as I mentioned earlier, employees that are onboarding and learning how to use different tools and such. Recently, I was speaking with someone who wanted to do something with language learning from the perspective of being able to use their app to see words in the real world setting and then be able to translate that on their app. And so some of the things that our customers have been in search of, the examples I gave you, you may be thinking, well, those exist already. And that's one thing you're going to run into with a lot of apps in this space. The difference primarily is going to be how you execute it, and then sometimes what tools you use. Because even though I feel we have a lot of wonderful tools here at Microsoft, you're not limited just to that to get things working. There are some other tools on the market, if you will, that play well with our tools, Vuforia being one of those. So I would say explore. If you want to get an idea of what certain things people need AR for, I would say browsing through the internet. Product Hunt was shared with me recently as well. Keep in touch with TechCrunch to see what's happening there. And hopefully that'll give you an idea of what can be resolved. Solomon said Euphoria is another one in the project proposal. Yeah, I utilize Euphoria over the summer, and if you're not sure the capabilities of Euphoria, it's almost like Azure Object Anchors in a sense, but it's going to be less code involved. I'm gonna wrap this up and then I'll I'll finish the conversation. But what I did was I took a image of like a word. In my case, it was breakdance. And then if you were to put your phone over that word, it would recognize it and it would make the character breakdance, like a 3D model of an animated character would breakdance. And then that was what I did with Euphoria. I don't even think I used actual code that I wrote for that. So it's just to give you an idea of things you can do without actually having to dive deep into writing code. So with all that said, thank you for everyone who has joined this conversation. If you have any questions, I'm going to leave my Twitter into the chat. If anyone's interested in connecting with me on there, my DMs are working. I'm not working, they're open. And then I'll check in with the Discord to see if there's any questions there as well. But Gustavo, any final words before we close up?
No, I think you covered it fine. I'll share my Twitter as well just in case, but I think you covered everything.
All right, perfect. Thank you everyone for hanging out with us all, and best of luck with everything that you are creating.